Exposed to the winter break. So how have you found it? Has it been beneficial for you and your players, and is it now about making sure you don't lose any momentum?
Well, we'll only know that on Saturday afternoon. So they've trained extremely hard over the break. We went away, which obviously was publicised, but only know that on Saturday. I would have loved to have carried on playing. I said that. I think it's obviously the first Premier League break, so maybe it'll settle down in years to come, and we'd like to be part of that in years to come. I think that's the biggest thing. And the boys had a couple of days off, but then back end of that week worked extremely hard, and then I've worked extremely hard back up in a different environment, a different climate to what they were training in. But it was a good week, good for the new players as well to integrate with the group. Really good for them, and looking forward to obviously a huge period of our season, the last 12 games.
Your message all season has been about the next game, but now 5th place could be enough for the Champions League. Does anything change?
No, nothing changes. It's an extremely competitive league. We're proud of our position at the moment, and we've worked extremely hard to get into that position, done a lot of things right, and we're going to have to do a lot of things right between now and the end of the season. We need to have bounce of the ball, we need to stay clear of big injuries, but I've got a really good group of focused boys that have got a huge amount of belief in themselves, and they're really looking forward to the next game, and that's the approach as it has been all season. And obviously, as people talk about, assessments will be made at the end, but we're in a great position. We're looking for the next 3 points. There's no foot off the gas from our point of view. It can't be. We're playing yet again a talented side, an established Premier League club, and we're still first season, new boys into the division. And I think I said after the Bournemouth game, I'm not a comfortable manager. I'm looking for the next result, and my players are looking for that next result.
Did that news about the 5th place, though, give you and the players a lift? Is it something you've talked about while you've been away?
Nah, well, I've certainly not talked about it. Been in the game long enough to know the pitfalls of patting yourself on the back and taking a step back, and we're always looking to overachieve. I think that's something that I've always tried to do in my career as a manager, and especially here the boys have. And going back to the first season, League One, even though I got promoted, it was 100 points. That was a fantastic achievement. Into the first year in the Championship, top 10 finish, promotion, and obviously our first season in the Premier League, overachievement. That's what we always will try to do, and I think that's a good way of putting it, and a good aspect and a good view and a good attitude to take.
Did you use the trip to discuss transfer strategy? Are the plans in place? Is there a plan A and a plan B depending on what happens?
Well, I should imagine that the owners, which that have obviously released funds in January, would know the importance of doing that in summer. So there was a long meeting over in the trip abroad between the owners, myself, and the chief exec and head of football operations. So we have plans. I think yet again, they will try and give me as much as they possibly can to improve the team. And we believe we've done that in January. And 2 of the boys are having a fight to get into the team. One's in the team already, but has got big competition to establish himself. So that's how it has to be, and I'm delighted that it is. I said the only one of the things I did say to the players was, obviously, organise training and set up and prepare for games. My only job now really should be, which is the hardest one, is to pick the team, and it is the hardest job that I have got, and possibly the hardest choices to make in my time, not just here but as a football manager, because I've got 22, 23 players that are healthy, fit, and I've got a desire to get into that team, and it's a brilliant position to be in as a manager, and a tough one. But I'll take that responsibility and try to pick the right team.
Arsene Wenger has talked this week about the possibility of tweaking the offside law so that it includes daylight. What would your views be on that? You've been on the wrong end of a few very tight offside decisions with VAR this season.
Yeah, we've had Simon Morgan up from the Premier League this week to talk about VAR and its introduction this year. I think the biggest thing is clarity through communication to the supporters. It isn't going to go away. I've talked quite a lot about my views on it. And then if it is going to stay, then the obvious and the biggest talking point has been these unbelievably tight offside calls, and what we should be doing is looking to give the advantage to forwards. And I've said all along, a couple of great bits of play, not just from us. I always remember Vrancic to Pukki against Spurs, a brilliant ball, a brilliant run, and it gets wiped off. So, I think what we're looking for now is maybe the advantage given to the attacking side. Obviously, then we're looking at more goals, more entertainment, and surely that has to be for the benefit of the game.
Thank you.
Cheers, Tim.
Can I follow up on that, actually? So this meeting then, what was the reason for it? Are they gauging opinion from Premier League managers? Are they actively considering then trying to canvass opinion on whether there should be changes?
Yeah. In the meeting was myself and senior staff and Billy and Ollie Norwood, captain and vice captain. So their views were taken into account as well. So it was a really open and honest meeting, and we talked about it. We talked about our experiences. We've benefited for a couple of situations through VAR, and obviously we've been on the receiving end of a couple that we felt were quite tight and unjust. But yeah, the meeting was open. Obviously, the Premier League are a huge player in all this, and rightly so. So, from my point of view, canvassing the opinion of myself and Premier League managers and staff and players is important, but important as well to canvass opinion of supporters as well, because as I've been consistent with my approach on that, these are a huge part of the game, and players, managers, administrators, but important that we involve the supporters as well.
Would you say that the groundswell of opinion would be from players and managers that, look, changes need to be made? Because it's VAR, as we've discussed a million times, and it polarises opinion. You're either generally for or against it. But would you say across the managers and the staff that actually changes are required?
Yeah, and clarity as well. Clarity to and education as well. And I've got to stick my hand up. I was a little bit naive. I found out this week that for Bournemouth's goal, the pass from Zander had touched the referee, and I think we all realised from the summer, when I think I spoke to Shieldsy about it, when we played out in Portugal, when this new rule came up, the referee kept getting in the way and the game kept getting interrupted, and I think it cost us a couple of goals as well. So uneducated manager needs to be educated, so which we've tried to do. But even in that situation, when the report come back, I was of the view and thought that the game would automatically get stopped, but because the ball didn't change direction and it didn't give an advantage to a side, it didn't. So education, communication, there is going to be changes. It is going to be here. We've all got a view on it, but I think obviously the views of players, staff and managers is important, and clarity is needed.
And just finally on that, because I realise it's not necessarily what we came here to discuss, but as well as the VAR, there has also been those rule changes they've got to be enforced. I mean, when was the last time you saw somebody walk off the field of play where they should, as opposed to, and etc.? They're not, and hitting the referee, they're not being enforced.
No, that's obviously up to the governing body from a referee's point of view and the official's point of view to force that those decisions that were taken in the summer to activate them and make them happen. And it's important that they do. It's something that we all see and we all get frustrated with. And I've talked about it. I talked about to Simon Morgan at the Premier League, and talked about simulation, and that's been possibly one of the most disappointing aspects of our return to this brilliant division and playing these fantastic sides. That's been disappointing that we've had to deal with that, and I think that's been disappointing for our supporters as well, seeing that up close and personal. But authorities there to implement rules and make decisions and taking into account of everybody's opinion.
We were talking post Bournemouth that one of the things on the list for Dubai was trying to address contract situations. Broadly speaking, what progress has been made?
Ongoing, left with the club and the agents. I 100% believe that the boys that we are in early negotiations with, and other players that down the line we will speak to, the likes of Basham and Norwood and a couple of others, that there's no fear of losing those players through them wanting to go and play for another football club. I'm 100% certain of that.
The one that's been in the public domain for longer, though, has been Lundstrom as things change there.
Well, no, it hasn't been from our point of view. It's been obviously spoke about, but John's got 18 months left of his contract. Some have got a little bit longer left on their contracts, but the initial 4 that we talked about, there's been no change in direction. We're not looking to do one before the other. We're looking to reward, as I've always said, and then look to move on to the next players. And obviously it was a tough January. It was to get those boys in that we did, and a lot of hard work went into it. And as I said, looking at the next batch of players, we want them to be part of our group going forward. And it's important that we have that stability, that they know what we're about, we know what they're about. I do think it'd be quite a big number if we lost those 4 players to replace. So want to keep them here, and we want to grow and add better players to the group, which certainly we've done in January, and I'm most certain and optimistic that we will do in the summer transfer window.
Just while we're talking about that, then clearly Berger has played. So how are Zivkovic and Retsos acclimatising to life at Sheffield United? Yeah,
pushing. We had in testing conditions. We had a behind closed doors game against Lincoln on Tuesday. So I think they've had a quite an interesting couple of weeks introduction to life in Sheffield, away with the players. I should imagine there's a few stories there, and then back to work in Sheffield and playing in that game up at Shirecliffe. Wind conditions weren't the best, but they got on with it. They've adapted well to the football club. The players, they've integrated fantastically well, and I'm sure they're enjoying their time. Of course, they're pushing, but I think you've seen, Panos is pushing. Richario is pushing. They all are, players that we're not even talked about. Luke Freeman, Jack Robinson, Jack Rodwell. They are really making this a really competitive group. So the boys played in that game behind closed doors, and will be available for selection for Saturday.
And is everybody okay injury wise?
Yeah, it's a great position to be in, and as I've said, going over old ground, conditioning work away from the lights, their application to gym work, application to extra physical work that they have to do to keep them in good shape, recruitment as well. as I've said, Paul Cooch can't really do anything about that. That's an injury that nobody can really affect. But the others that we try to, in terms of recruitment, in terms of programs or whatever, we'll do our best to. But there's always that partnership between what we want to put into them and the players' attitude towards it. I think it just speaks volumes for the group that they're all at it and they're all fit and healthy and all raring to go.
So Brighton next then. What's your assessment of them in between meetings? Obviously beat them down at their place. What's your assessment of them right now?
Yeah, tight game down there. A little bit could have gone either way. Obviously we took our opportunity, had chances on the counter second half to kill the game off, but they're a dangerous side. They've obviously had a change of approach in manager and in style, but an established Premier League club, owner that's ploughed a lot of money into the football club, new ground. I was fortunate enough to play there for 2 or 3 months in the old days under Mickey Adams at the Withdean, so obviously a big change from playing at a ground with a running track to playing at the Amex now, and the changing the training ground just up the road. But an established club, passionate fan base, some really good players, and as I said, a talented manager that's putting his stamp on a team, and not always the easiest thing in that you have to do to change in quickly as what they have done. And I'm sure that they'll have a positive season and we'll be better. We'll be better with Graham's influence over his side with time. It's
entirely understandable why we're sort of peppering questions to you about Europe, etc. But the Premier League from kind of fourth down to 12th or 13th is very close, isn't it? There's not a great deal points-wise across the majority of the division. What do you put that down to?
I don't think it's changed since the start of the season, has it?
Not really.
So it's we've been in this position all along. It's consistency. It's keeping your best players fit. There's obviously been a change in managers through certain clubs, which happens through maybe not getting the results that teams have wanted to, and there's some huge clubs in the mix as well. A couple of clubs going through transition. I can't be bothered and worried about that. I've got enough on in terms of making sure that we're right. We've done fantastically well. There's no getting away from it. We're on 39 points with 12 games to go, and of course people will talk about looking up, and I want us to look up. I want us to go and reel in the teams above us. I can't really go into a team meeting in half an hour and just say, well, let's be careful of staying out of the bottom three. We have been realistic all along. It's a tough division. We were favourites to go down from what we spend to what we pay to where we've been to the group that we've got to being a promoted team, the second best promoted team out of the Championship last year. But this is a fresh season and we've gone for it, and we've been consistent in our approach and in our play, and we're in this position. So see if we can improve and see if we can go and get the next 3 points. And as I said, where it takes us, it takes us, and we'll deal with that wherever it is. But as I said, 12 huge games. I think as well, from our point of view, we have to be careful from a supporter's point of view that they're not looking at a table now and looking at our position and looking at Brighton's position. This is as tough as it gets. They've dominated possession in the majority of games against teams that are really established in the Premier League. The Liverpools, the Man Cities, the Man Uniteds, the Arsenals, the Tottenhams, the Spurs, the Tottenhams, the Chelseas that are coming up, obviously are going to whet the appetite of our supporters, but this should be just as big, and the noise and the backing and the encouragement, if it was ever deserved by a group of players, it should be deserved by this group to push us on, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking to do our bit, but as I said, we have to be careful. This isn't maybe like a last year, us being in our position, a team being have not had an unbelievable season in terms of points. And yeah, here we go. We're just gonna come in today and it's a guaranteed 3 points. These tests are hugely difficult, and this one is going to be right up there.
Great. Ta.
Cheers.
Chris, just one from me. Dean Henderson's got a lot of praise this season. I just wondered how important are the next 12 games in terms of him securing that England berth, or in your view, has he already done enough to be number one?
Well, we all have our opinions on it, and the most important one is Gareth's, which I totally respect. But he's pushing as hard as he could ever push. He's playing fantastically well. He's been instrumental in our form this year. Clean sheets, big saves. I think we all talk about concentration levels. You know, when we were dominating the opposition, seems quite a long time ago, against Bournemouth, against a runner play, he makes a huge save for us. So, you know, concentration levels, especially from a young goalkeeper, especially when we're on top, is key and huge. Big 12 games for us as a football club, and in that, obviously, individually, it's huge. If Dean has aspirations of playing in the Euros in the summer, and as you should imagine, he has.
Thank you.
Anybody else before Saturdays? Anybody else?
Just one, Chris. Just out of interest, this meeting you had in the Premier League, was anything said about when the linesman, as I prefer to call them, puts his flag up for an offside?
Yeah, there was discussions about everything, John. You know, we obviously were disappointed in the goal against Newcastle, but saying that, the Premier League did talk about, you know, playing to the whistle, and did talk about linesmen keeping the flag down. So there was maybe an obvious mistake by the linesman, but we did talk about it changing, and you know, it is difficult as well for players to change straight away overnight when they've been taught a game where, you know, the assistant referee, as I'd like to put it, John, is a key player to them in the game, and when he, as it used to be, puts his flag up, really, you know, that was the signal to stop the game. So the games are changing, and players have got to change. I've got to change, but that was one topic that was talked about in the meeting.
So what is the rule now? Because you will watch a lot more football than I will, but I don't think I've ever seen a game not stop when the assistant referee puts his flag up.
Well, it'll play to a finish now, so players have got to, you know, from our point of view, forget if the linesman puts his flag up, and if we're in an attacking position, go and play to a finish, and then obviously it will get viewed by VAR, and from a defensive point of view, see the game out. So
that doesn't happen.
Well,
what tends to happen is when he puts his flag up, the referee still blows instantly.
Well, he didn't that time against us, so I think
where'd you go?
Yeah, we're all asking for that consistency, aren't we? And I'm sure, as I've been told, and what it will happen in the future is that we will find that consistency. So our attitude to it was one to stop, which we got punished for, and hopefully now, you know, if that does happen in the future, that we will play right to the end, and the players have got to recognise that, because it's a rule that's going to be here to stay.